Here's a hard truth. Sticking to old habits can be more dangerous than aging itself. I've heard dozens of stories, like a man who fell just steps away from his landline and couldn't move for hours, or a woman who lost her insurance because one bill slipped through the cracks. These aren't rare accidents. They are signs that routines which once made sense don't anymore. And that's why today, I'll share with you 10 things that no longer make sense when you're living alone after 70, plus the smarter choices that protect your freedom and independence. Let's dive in. Reason 1. Keeping a landline without backup. That old landline on the kitchen wall or resting on the nightstand beside your bed has probably been with you for decades. It feels sturdy. It feels reliable. It feels familiar. It has heard birthday wishes, late-night emergencies, even arguments that shook the house. But here's the truth. When you're living alone, after 70, it's not enough anymore. Imagine this. You're walking down the hallway at night. Maybe you trip on the rug, or maybe your hip suddenly gives out. You fall. You're awake. You're breathing, but you can't move. The landline is just 10 feet away. You can see it. You can almost picture yourself grabbing the receiver, but your body says no. In that moment, 10 feet might as well be 10 miles. I've heard stories that still break my heart. One woman told me her 79-year-old mother lay on the bathroom floor for 14 hours before a neighbor found her. She had a landline. She just couldn't reach it. Now, this doesn't mean you must throw the landline out. It still has value. But you need something that moves with you. A medical alert pendant around your neck, a smartwatch with fall detection, even a voice-activated assistant like Alexa or Google Home. This isn't paranoia. It's preparation. It's not about giving up independence. It's about protecting it. Because one fall, one accident, shouldn't take away everything you've worked to keep. If you know someone still relying only on a landline, share this video with them. It might save their independence. Reason 2. Refusing to automate bills. Back in the day, the checkbook was king. You wrote the date. You signed your name. You tore off the carbon copy, and you sealed the envelope with a stamp. It was routine. It was order. It was discipline. But here's the problem. That system doesn't work the same when you're living alone after 70. All it takes is one hospital stay, 1 week with the flu, or one envelope that slips under a pile of magazines. Suddenly, the property tax deadline passes, the insurance premium lapses, the coverage disappears. I've seen this happen too many times, and the damage comes quietly. Late fees, reactivation penalties, lost coverage, and most painful of all, the stress of trying to fix something that was never meant to break. Here's the hard truth. Even the sharpest mind can miss a due date when stress, isolation, or illness get in the way. You think you paid. You're sure you paid, but you didn't. And there's no one else to double-check you. That's why automation is no longer optional. It just makes sense. Set up autopay for the essentials: rent, mortgage, utilities, insurance. Use email alerts for upcoming charges. If you're worried about fraud or overdrafts, use a credit card for autopay and pay it off monthly, or set phone alerts to catch unusual charges. And if the setup feels overwhelming, don't do it alone. Ask your child, ask your grandchild, ask your bank for help. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because life at 70 and beyond should be about living, not chasing envelopes across the kitchen table. Reason 3. Holding on to an unsafe house. Your house holds your story. Every photograph on the wall, every creaky step on the staircase, every scratch on the doorframe, all of it whispers memories. That's why it feels impossible to imagine leaving it. It's not just a building. It's the heart of your history. But here's the danger. The house that once sheltered you may no longer fit the body you live in now. Steep staircases that once kept you strong now feel like cliffs. A bathtub you step over, becomes a wall too high to climb. Cabinets that once stretched your arms now demand too much balance. Add slower reflexes, weaker joints, and reduced vision, and the house quietly becomes a trap. And it's not just about physical safety. It's the upkeep. Mowing lawns, cleaning gutters, fixing leaks, paying property taxes, handling security calls. One woman told me she stayed in her family home for nearly a decade after her husband passed. But one night, when the basement flooded, she froze with panic. She realized the house was no longer a comfort. It was a cage. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing a space that supports your life now. That might be a condo with no stairs, a single-floor home with senior-friendly design, or a retirement community where the lawn, the roof, and the pipes aren't your problem anymore. You've already done the hard work. You've raised families. You've paid mortgages. You've earned peace. Don't let the walls of yesterday steal the safety and ease you deserve today. Reason 4. Driving at night or long distances. For decades, driving meant freedom. It meant grabbing the keys and going where you wanted, when you wanted. It meant independence, control, and choice. But with age, changes creep in quietly. The glare from headlights blinds you faster than it used to. Your peripheral vision shrinks, and that stop sign at the edge of the street appears later than you expect. Depth perception fades, and your reaction time, just 1 second slower. But sometimes, that single second is everything. I've heard countless stories. A missed stop sign on a rainy night, a curb struck while turning into a driveway, a frightening near accident after a long trip on the highway. Each one ended with the same confession. I thought I could handle it, until I almost couldn't. And here's the truth no one says out loud. No police officer is coming to take your keys. No family member wants to strip you of freedom. It's you who has to choose. Cutting back on night driving or long solo road trips doesn't mean surrendering independence. It means adapting. It means shifting from pride to smart independence. Run errands in daylight. Ask a friend to share the wheel. Take an Uber or Lyft once in a while. The ride might cost a few dollars, but the peace of mind is priceless. Because pride won't keep you safe on the road, but wise choices will. Reason 5. Sticking to the same doctor. We stay with old doctors out of loyalty. They've known us for decades. They delivered our children. They treated our flus, our coughs, our injuries. They know our history, or at least they used to. But medicine changes, and so does your body. What worked at 50 may not work at 75. And many general practitioners, though caring, are not trained to recognize the complex patterns of aging. They may miss the early signs of dementia. They may brush off mobility concerns as just getting older. They may overprescribe, forgetting that one medication now interacts dangerously with another. One friend of mine stayed with the same doctor for 25 years. When she complained of fatigue and slower walking, he dismissed it with a smile. That's normal at your age. But when she finally saw a geriatric specialist, the doctor immediately suspected a thyroid problem. He ran the tests. He was right. It was easily treated. Afterward, she told me something powerful. I didn't even realize how ignored I'd been, until someone finally listened. And that's the core of this reason. Your health is too important to run on autopilot. Blind loyalty doesn't make sense if it costs you years of energy, mobility, and quality life. The smarter choice is to seek doctors who specialize in your stage of life, ones who take time, ones who listen, ones who see what you might not. Your health deserves sharper eyes, and so do you. Reason 6. Stocking up. Like the apocalypse, preparation is wise, but panic preparation, that can bury you. I've walked into kitchens where the pantry looked like a small grocery store. Shelves stacked with cans, boxes of pasta, bags of rice, Freezers so full you can't tell if it's chicken or a loaf of bread. From 2012. It comes from habit. Years of feeding families. Years of making sure no one went hungry. Years of watching storms on the news. Thinking, I'd better be ready. But living alone after 70 changes the equation. Overstocking doesn't create safety. It creates stress. Food spoils. Gants expire. Heavy jars fall on your foot. And too often, items get lost in the dark back corner. By the time you pull them out, you can't even read the faded label. One woman I met had jars in her basement older than her grandkids. She laughed as she showed them to me. But the truth is, it wasn't safe. The smarter choice. Keep what you actually eat. Enough for a week or two. Meals you can cook easily, even on a tired day. Items you can see and reach without bending dangerously. Prepared is smart. Being buried alive in beans is not. Your pantry should serve your life today, not cling to fears from yesterday. Reason 7. Holding on to heirlooms no one wants. China sets. Silver trays. Boxes of old trophies. Antique oak furniture too heavy to move. Each piece carries memories, but for the next generation, they often carry little meaning. Your children and grandchildren live in smaller homes. They move more often. They choose minimalist lifestyles. Their memories live inside phones, on cloud drives, in digital albums, not in china cabinets. I remember one woman polishing her grandmother's silver tea set. She spent hours, rubbing until it shined. Then her granddaughter said softly, "It's beautiful, Grandma, but I'll never use it." It hurt. Of course it did. But it also freed her. She donated the set to a historical home. They accepted it with gratitude. And she felt lighter. That's the key. Living alone after 70 doesn't mean turning your home into a museum. It means letting go and choosing space that reflects the life you live today. So what can you do? Take photos of heirlooms. Write down their stories. Pass them on to local museums, collectors, or neighbors who value them. Keep 1 or 2 pieces that truly bring you joy, but don't chain yourself to things that only bring weight. Letting go doesn't erase the past. It creates more space to live in the present. Reason 8. Ignoring cybersecurity. Hackers target seniors, especially those who live alone. Old passwords reused everywhere. No two-factor authentication. Sticky notes with logins taped under keyboards. Sound familiar? One man told me his story. He hadn't touched his old Yahoo account in years, but hackers found it. And because that email was linked to his bank, his medical records, even his will, they broke into everything. It took him months to fix. Months of stress. Months of fear. And he admitted later, "I knew I should have updated my passwords. I just didn't want the hassle." But here's the truth. It's not about being tech-savvy. It's about being self-protective. So, what's the solution? Update your passwords. Don't reuse the same one everywhere. Use two-factor authentication. Yes, that extra code they text you. It may feel annoying, but it could be the only wall between you and a drained account. And consider a password manager. These apps remember everything for you. No more scribbles on scraps of paper. If it feels overwhelming, ask a younger friend. Ask a grandchild. Ask someone you trust. There's no shame in learning. Peace of mind matters more than convenience. Don't let laziness or pride leave your life wide open. Reason 9. Avoiding assistive devices out of pride. Some people refuse. They won't use a cane. They won't install a grab bar. They won't buy a walker. Why? Because they don't want to look old. But here's the hard truth. Pretending you're not aging doesn't stop you from aging. It just makes the consequences worse. A cane is not a weakness. It's a tool of independence. A grab bar in the bathroom doesn't mean you're fragile. It means you're smart. A walker doesn't take dignity away. It keeps dignity intact by preventing a fall in public. One friend of mine said something brilliant. You know what looks older than using a cane? Falling in the street and not being able to get up. He was right. And these days, assistive devices aren't the clunky metal frames of the past. There are stylish foldable walkers, bright-colored canes, even models with built-in seats or storage. Living alone means no one is there to catch you. That makes prevention more important than pride. Choose safety. Choose tools that keep you moving, because nothing steals independence faster than one bad fall. Reason 10. Thinking you must do it all alone. This may be the heaviest burden of all. The belief that you must handle everything by yourself. Groceries, repairs, finances, health appointments, cooking, cleaning, all on your shoulders. And maybe part of you even likes it that way. After all, you've been the provider, the caretaker, the rock for your family your whole life. But here's the truth. There is no trophy for silent suffering, no medal for exhaustion, no applause for doing it all alone. And worst of all, that lone wolf mindset can backfire. If you fall behind on bills, or mess up your medication, or skip meals because you're too tired to cook, there's no backup system. You are your own safety net, and that net wears thin. Living alone doesn't mean living without support. Ask for help. Hire a cleaner once a month. Let a neighbor carry the heavy groceries. Join a community group, not just for company, but for backup. Sometimes the bravest words you can say are, "I could use a hand." That's not a weakness. That's wisdom. That's survival with dignity, grace, and a whole lot more peace. Change can feel uncomfortable, but letting go of what no longer serves you isn't giving up. It's smart living. Living alone after 70 doesn't have to mean living harder. It can mean living lighter, safer, and freer. So take a deep breath, make one small change, and permit yourself to upgrade your life, not out of fear, but out of freedom. If this video gave you something to think about, hit like, subscribe for more honest conversations, and share it with someone who needs that gentle reminder. Because you deserve a life that fits who you are today, not who you used to be.